The Russian capital, Moscow, and its surrounding areas were targeted in a rare drone attack on Tuesday morning. The Kremlin says that the drone strike on Moscow was a Ukrainian terrorist attack. Now, further asserting on how Russia downed all 8 drone attacks on Moscow. However, no one has claimed responsibility of the attack. The incident comes just weeks after 2 drones exploded right over the Kremlin, an attack that Russia has blamed on Ukraine and calling US the mastermind behind that attack, although Kyiv has denied having any link with the incident. Meanwhile, just earlier in the day, Russia had launched a fresh massive wave of attacks on Kyiv after it fired a barrage of missiles in a rare daytime attack on the Ukrainian capital on Monday. Now, Russia has so far launched a total of 17 airstrikes on the Ukrainian capital this month. Kyiv's military administration officials have said that the air defense systems were repelling the attacks. Ukraine said it shot down 11 ballistic missiles and 20 drones that Russia aimed at Kyiv. Now, according to the Ukrainian officials, 1 person has died and 4 others were injured when debris from a destroyed Russian projectile hit a high-rise apartment building, sparking a fire. The consistent aerial attacks also come ahead of an expected Ukrainian counter-offensive. All right, to discuss this further, we have Professor David Dunn joining us on the broadcast. He's a professor of international politics, University of Birmingham. Welcome to the broadcast, David.
Good afternoon.
David, how do you see this attack in Moscow at a time when there are speculations that Ukraine has begun its counter-offensive?
I think it needs to be seen as part of that wider context that Ukraine is gearing up for the most important offensive from its side in this war. And it wants to, if it is indeed them that's responsible for the drone attack, they want to send a signal to Moscow, to the Russian people, that actually Ukraine can hit back too, not only on the battlefield in Ukraine trying to regain their sovereign territory, but actually that Moscow can't fire missiles at Ukraine and not expect to have Ukraine hit back at Russian cities and offer some response to the Russian drone attacks on Kyiv and other cities in Ukraine.
So it is essentially a statement that we will not keep getting bombarded, but we can come on the offensive as well. David, also I wanted to discuss this with you. How do you feel the West will respond to these attacks on Russia? Because even if Ukraine does not take responsibility, Russia will surely link these attacks back to the US, possibly as the mastermind behind these strikes, just as it did last time as well. We've already seen Russia moving nukes to Belarus. Do you feel such attacks make the West more jittery?
There is some concern. Some of the commentary in the UK this morning is expressing concern about how this incident will play in the West. I personally am less concerned about that, partly because the West has made it very clear that the prohibition on the attacks on Russia are to do with the equipment that the West has supplied. So, for example, the Storm Shadow missile that the UK recently gave to Ukraine, it was made explicitly clear that that was for use in sovereign Ukrainian territory and not for use against Russia. The weapons that were used last night were very rudimentary, ones that were made in factories in rural parts of Ukraine. They were not Western weapons. They were not particularly sophisticated. They were very slow-flying devices made of cardboard and wood with an explosive charge. And actually, as we saw, almost all of them, or maybe even all of them, were shot down by Russian air defenses. So they were not going to be game-changing, war-winning weapons. They are symbolic weapons trying to actually say that Russia, you do not feel you have impunity in this war. We will have the right to attack you. So I think in the wider sense, both Russia will recognize that these are rudimentary Ukrainian devices and not part of a Western attempt to actually supply weapons that are used by Ukraine from the West against Russia. And in the West, although there may be some concern, there's a recognition of the limited nature of this attack.
Thank you so much for all those inputs, David. That was Professor David Dunn joining us from Birmingham.
Thank you.